while he was working on my car.
Two birds, one stone.
Yeah, and he ended up, Natalie was with me, and he liked the presentation so well, he bought two, one for himself and one for his mother.
Woo, great job. You fix something, you fix something, I like it. I did. The doctor.
Speak up, Bill.
What was the great Dr. Dunn?
Come on.
Do tell.
I
Where's the
have
woman now?
17 mates.
You have 17 minutes?
Nice.
7 in 10 days.
More, we're fighting. There's 3 days left. Right? Just one a day. One a day.
And 3 apps.
5 apps.
5 apps.
She's we don't have all the points.
But she also got promoted.
And then we have one more, right?
Dr. Cole.
Dr. Cole.
He doesn't know.
I love it, right? Great about this business. You don't know about sometimes what's going on.
Dr. Cole, you have one IUL that you opened up for your recruit.
Very nice. And then Jira wanted to let you guys know that she's actually been working, that she's been down at the ER, and she had an app over this past week as well. And because of this beautiful woman over here, we actually were able to close 9 apps in the last week. Oh, trophies up the top. I'll bring my dynamic duo up here. Pretty interesting when you make a little bit of a shift and you're actually assertive when you're talking with your clients and how actually things change, and you start asking the right questions like, hey, you actually want to move forward? You would be amazed on how that actually changes things if you just ask that one little question. So I would advise all of you, just be a little bit more assertive when you guys are talking to people and get them to kind of move forward. Just ask them if they're actually ready to move forward. A lot of times that's the question they're waiting for. It's for you to ask them and know the next steps of how to get moving forward. So leave that tidbit. Who's actually registered for the 50 trial? Nope. Passed the 50 trial.
Recruits. I had.
Shoot, recruits. Let's start talking about her. So, who's actually had a recruit in the last 7 years?
I'm not necessarily standing up for me. I want to introduce Sherry to everybody. Comes in as a go ahead, stand up, Sherry. Comes in as a licensed agent. Has been in the industry for over 5 years and focuses and has a big passion on helping people with their Medicare. So if you know anybody that needs Medicare help, Sherry would be more than happy to help you out. So I'm really excited to have you on the team. Welcome, Sherry.
Fiji.
Great, thank you. We recruited, Christopher and I recruited a gentleman yesterday, day before yesterday. He signed up, but he cannot be here. He's going to be on Wednesday. His name is Timothy. I'm sure all of you must have met him. Wednesday seminar. And today I have a friend here, Nitin. He's also going to sign up after the meeting is over, so he's going to be coming aboard with us.
Awesome. Definitely see a 3-3-30 coming in some of these features. All right, keep going, Fiji, keep going. And then again, the lovely lady with her 7 in a week. My head's getting straight. Now back to classes. Who submitted their U4? Passed the test? Running for a test. Maybe thinking about a test? Jim's thinking about a test?
I'm thinking about it.
All right. Awesome. So let's go through.
Pregnancy test.
Hey, I did.
Stand up! So, when's our test date?
It's gonna be in September.
September, alright. So we're gonna be messing with you all through Vegas, making sure you're still studying. Not out at the clubs at night, alright? Cool, so I'm gonna go over some announcements. If you have not gotten registered for convention, I'm sorry, but now you have to go to the actual convention to actually get registered now. We can no longer do them online. Okay, so just a heads up on that. Also, we will be having breakout. If you have not registered for it, go ahead and get registered. It is $15. They've done a huge discount for us this year. Last year was $25 per person. This year they've actually discounted down to $15. So make sure you guys are taking advantage of that. It's going to be a great actual opportunity. If you're not an SMD, this is when you actually get recognized and a time for you to actually be able to walk the stage in front of your family and friends.
Jeff, do you know the last day to register for breakout?
I do not. Do you know?
I'm pretty sure you can just walk in there and pay your money and go in. So
I think you can. That's
if
what we
for
did
some
last year.
reason you didn't or are thinking that you're not going to be able to make it to the convention, I'd definitely go to breakout because that's probably going to be better.
Yeah. So if you, again, like he was saying, if you cannot make it to convention, maybe you could get the time off. Let's see if we can get the time off for a Saturday and actually have you come up at least Friday night so you can go to breakout. Any special recognition for Francis?
All right, this special recognition goes to a guy who my wife talked to from the airport all the way to our house. He works hard. He actually canceled all his appointments. He talked to my wife Friday, canceled all appointments on Saturday, and he signed up at the same time, not only as a business partner, but also for convention, right, on that same spot. So Jude, this is you. Oh, I didn't know that this one gets pictured too.
Thank you. Great job, great job. Those of you who want to actually be in the vision board, we're going to be passing this around. Please make sure you add money, not take money, as well as put your information on here. There's going to be some emails and things sent out to you. I know how some of you guys are at the collection plate when it comes around. You guys take, not put. So make sure I emphasize that. So I'll start that with Michelle. As well as, who knows about Race to 10K? Some of us? Cool. So good explanation. So, Race to 10K, if you have one recruit from May 1st to July 31st and 2,500 points, you actually are being put into a drawing in order to win $10,000 at convention. Okay, so that's a huge opportunity for you to be able to walk into a convention and walk back, not having to pay for anything at convention. So, it just takes one recruit and basically an app for you to get 2,500 points. Make sure you fight. We have 3 days left in order to make sure we hit that. You guys still have time to actually make sure that's actually something that you have a chance to win in the convention. All right. Oh, if you have not done your and you are just life licensed and you have not done your actual course for the DOJ, make sure you guys are getting online and getting that taken care of. It actually is going to end here at the end of August. So we want to make sure that everyone's taken care of. You guys aren't in any jeopardy of not being able to actually help families run business. Okay. All right.
Thank you. And the beach party.
Beach party. How did I forget about them? Pastor wasn't here to remind me, so I guess that's why. There will be a beach party here this Sunday. If you have not already registered for it, I believe you can still register once you show up there. They will have a cash app for you to go ahead and use either a credit card or possibly pay with cash. It's going to be down in Playa del Rey. And it's going to be an opportunity for you to now associate with some other people outside of our office and have some great relationship building down with Dan's office as well as the majority of his hierarchy. All right, so make sure you guys are taking advantage of that.
Promotion contest.
Promotion contest. Who's actually close to hitting their promotion?
Woo woo!
Anyone else?
I was going to say, Mama just...
Speaking of promotion, who hit their promotion already?
Cheryl, stand up.
Woo!
Guys, there's still 3 days left. We still a lot of magic can happen in the last 3 days. You just have to focus and make sure you're asking the right questions and talking to the right people. All right? So let's get out there and let's make a difference and actually walk the stage and actually put yourself in position to come out of convention with a lot of momentum. All right? So we'll get into classes. First class, who was actually in the actual presentation room last and is now back here for the very first time?
Sherry.
Ah, Sherry! Yes! Alright. Sherry, you're in for a treat. And Nathan, right? Nathan?
Yes.
Okay. Nathan and Sherry, you guys are in for a treat. You guys get the privilege of getting Crusade taught to you guys by Stephen Adams. So, understand, Steve? Steve has over 25 years of experience in our actual industry and with our company, so make sure you guys are asking him a ton of questions. He's going to have all the answers. He's like the guru of the financial nation.
He's like the Google of financial services, right?
Google. So if you guys need to go into the search engine, just make sure you guys hit a period at the end before you ask him, right?
He's Google, Jim's Wikipedia.
I think we got one more. Nevin? Yes.
Perfect. So we'll have you guys all follow Steve to his office. Man, that class got big. 2 sets.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
2 sets. Man, somebody do something nasty back there? Clear out that whole side. Who actually was in Crusade? Who was in Crusade and has already gone through that class and needs to be oriented?
Why don't we take half those people and put them in orientation?
Alright.
Jim, can you orchestrate that? Why don't we take half those
We
people?
have somebody teaching.
Who's orientation?
Jeanette Tovali.
Jeanette, why don't you take half those, because it doesn't matter which one they go through first, Crusade or Orientation. Why don't you take half and put them through orientation, okay? And hey, Jeanette, pick the ones. You just pick them. Just pick them. Say, Schloeman blesses me to pick these people who go straight to orientation. You get to skip Crusade till Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, something like that.
Who actually needs to know how we get paid needs to go through points and comments? John?
I just got reminded of that yesterday. How we get paid there.
Alright, John, you're actually off today. You're not going to teach the class, but you get the privilege of staying back for our main training. Okay. Alright, so let's give a warm ruckus to the man, the myth, the legend, the man with 16 offices and cash flow that's going out of this world. A man that I definitely look up to and hope to mirror my business behind, Mr. Christopher Schloeman.
All right, how's everybody doing this morning?
Great.
Great. Excited to be here with you. Got a lot to cover this morning. Shocking. Seems like I always have like enough content for 4 classes, and I try to jam it down here. I want to. We got a good group this morning. We got a lot of people going to orientation and Crusade. That's sort of exciting, right?
Yes.
Somebody doing some
Yes.
recruiting.
Yes.
Somebody recruiting some new people. That's good stuff. Hey, I want to first of all, I called a shot probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we got people that are really running in the right direction. And when I looked back, we had how many of you were on the conference call yesterday? Does somebody know if that was recorded? I know Jim texted me early on, is this being recorded? I assume somebody was. Like usually Ron or somebody records them. Fitzroy, did you record yesterday's conference call? No.
Such a great answer.
As the president and commander would formerly have said, you're fired. Yeah. Just teasing, I love you. I posted that meme this morning of Trump going, you're fired. After I posted, I go, that dude's president. It's sort of like weird to see him going, like, you're fired, and that dude's president now, this reality show guy, right? A little odd. A little odd. So it wasn't reality, he was a real actor.
He worked with chimpanzees.
That's okay, good
I'm
case.
just saying.
Like much of the White House staff, it seems nowadays. But anyway, that's right. Anyway, there's a little bit of chaos going on there. But Mark Onson, I had Mark speak at the Wealth Bowl, and ours is a non-traditional business inside of a very traditional industry. And what makes it non-traditional, one of the elements is we've got a real, the engine that drives our model is recruiting. How many of you know that? How many of you accept that? Okay, it's good to accept it, right? That's a fact. And so I was looking at Mark's numbers, and Mark had, prior to the Wealth Bowl, he had double-digit recruiting 19 months in a row. 19 months in a row. I think out of those 19 months, if I'm not mistaken, like 15 of them were 15 base shop recruits and above. And like 6 or 7 of them were 20 or 25 and above. And yet, before he got on this run of 19 months in a row, he had like 1 month that was like a 3. How many of you can relate to 3 recruits in your base shop in a month? Like, right? Like, right? And then he'd have like a 6, and then he'd have like a 4, and then a 7, and then he had another 3, and another 3, and then maybe a 6 again. And his recruiting numbers were just all over, and they were just sort of anemic, right? And I say anemic not to be condescending to some of you who's that's where your numbers are. And like I've been there. I remember when my business was just me. Like I remember like it was yesterday. Am I right? When I was I reached out to Ricky this morning and said, hey, what does their team really need to hear about? And Ricky was like, dude, like, what did you do when you were us? When you were at our stages, like what did you do to like get things going, to go from like when you're just barely making any money and really don't have anything going to like getting it going. And I said I know exactly what I did. I can remember it like it was yesterday. As a matter of fact, my wife could give that talk because she remembers what it was like. Those are just times that you never ever forget. You don't want to forget, right? And I'll get to that. I'm leading to that. But so when I was talking to Mark, I had a theory as to how Mark's numbers, or why Mark's numbers went from just sort of like everybody else's recruiting numbers to all of a sudden 10 plus base shop recruits month after month after month, and 19 months in a row. I mean, it's like a machine at this point, right? Matter of fact, this month, or for the past few months, I should say, all of the SMDs in his office are double-digit recruiting for the past few months in a row. So it's not just Mark. Now what he's begun to do is create a culture there. And so when I was talking to Mark, I had theories about how he shifted his business because I'm the guru. And so I asked him some questions that I knew he was going to tell me the answers. I was going to go, yep, I'm the guru. I already knew that in advance. I just thought I would appease him by asking the questions. But as I'm asking him the questions, of course, I'm like completely wrong. Right? The guru was completely wrong. He goes, and I started asking him, and I could see his wheels sort of turning, and he remembers exactly what happened for him, exactly the shift that he made. And we sort of get on to something. And there's a book called The Game of Numbers by Nick Murray that he read, and I was running an elite circle, and I had him come out to do a training for Elite Circle. And that's when he really started to not just read that book, but to study that book and to put that book into practice in his own business. And so he began subscribing to that philosophy of building a business and teaching it over and over and over. The philosophy really was of this daily amount of calls that one needs to make. I was just talking to my brother about it, who's in sales earlier this week, and what it really is about is, can we control who says yes or no?
No.
We can't, can we? Can we control who shows up as a guest or who doesn't show up?
No.
Can we control whether or not, if they say yes, whether or not they show up or whether they buy?
No.
No, because some people will say yes and still not do it, right? So sales seems very unpredictable, out of control, like it's almost like magic. Like some people win and other people don't, and what's the difference? The difference is controlling the things that we can control. And what we can control is our activity. What we can't control is our activity. So activity, right? Activity times our skill set is going to equal results. And we do have control over the activity, and we do have control over the skill set. Somewhere in between here, we develop a ratio. What's a ratio? A ratio is for every 10 calls I make, or for every, let's say for every 100 calls I make, I'm just going to make up numbers here, I wind up talking to 20 people, and of the 20 people I talk to, 2 say yes. That's a ratio, right? You can look at the ratio, either the ratio is 2 out of every 100 I call say yes, or 2 out of every 20 I talk to say yes. Does that make sense, yes or no?
Yes.
So, if I make 5 calls a day, then it's going to take me 20 days to get 2 people who say yes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If I make 10 calls a day, then every 10 days I'll have 2 people that say yes. Make sense?
Yes.
To one person. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
Is this the group that wants to win it, or is that the other 2 rooms, right? Right, Michelle, you're in the wrong room, right? If I make 50 calls a day, then I'm gonna talk to 10, and I'll get 1 yes. But what begins to happen when I control the activity and make more and more calls on a daily basis is my ratios begin to go up. If I'm making 5 or 10 calls a day, my ratios aren't going to go up. I want you to write down right now 3 things that you've tried to do before in your life. Maybe it's piano, tennis, golf, scuba dive, sail a boat, fishing, anything. It could be anything. Totally not related to business. 3 things that you've tried before in your life that you're not very good at. Just write them down real quick. No cheating off your neighbor. Three things you've tried to do before that you're not very good at. Now write down 3 things that you've done before that you're very good at and enjoy doing. 3 things that you enjoy doing and you're very good at. Mo, like barbecue skills, right? I already know Mo's. Errol, work in the pit, right?
You know what column that goes in?
That's my athletic ability.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what's the difference between the 2 groups? What's the difference between the 2 groups? Hope.
The ones on the first, I give up on, like when I try, like, and I.
Quitter. No, just kidding. That's common for all. That's true of all of us, right?
And every once in a while, and these are things also that I'm thinking, oh, I would really like to be good at cooking eggplant, but it just isn't working, you know, or juggling.
Juggling. I'm actually a pretty
Every
good
once in a while, I'm
juggler.
like, oh, I should start this, and it.
Huh?
One of your many talents.
One of my many talents. I do bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras, kids' birthday parties, yes. I get the big nose, the big shoes, a little bit of makeup.
Scary.
Very scary, yes.
The things that I sucked at,
Yeah,
I did for my parents, for someone else.
right?
Okay, the things I stunk at. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
The things that I was good at, that I enjoyed, were things that I wanted to do.
Excellent. Okay, great. So that's an important distinction. Any other distinctions you notice between the 2 lists?
The amount of time I dedicated to the stuff that I was really good at, I spent a bunch of time practicing my skills, practicing how to play pool, and the other stuff, like I tried ice skating once, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, are you sure God just didn't decide you're a bad ice skater?
It could be.
Yeah, probably not though.
Probably not.
Probably not. How many of you, if you look at the 2 lists, you notice the stuff I'm not very good at, I haven't done that many times, and I haven't done that many times in a row. There's like big gaps of time between I do them. Like I'm not very good at bowling, but I don't bowl that often. I'm not very good at golf, but I don't bowl that often, right? I do it so infrequently I wouldn't expect to be good at it. Jim.
I also didn't get any coaching on the things that I'm not.
Oh, excellent. I also didn't get any coaching on the things that I'm good at, right?
Not good.
Not good at. And then how many of you notice the things that you're good at, like Beth said, you enjoy doing, you do more often, you do a shorter space frequency? True or not true? True.
Well,
Well,
no,
one
I
time.
mean, the things that I was really bad at that I did for my parents,
Right.
clarinet, piano, dance.
Oh.
I mean, they were 5 days a week, some of them, others were 2 days a week for years as a child.
Okay,
I
hey,
just had
Fitzroy.
no aptitude.
Fitz? We lost Fitz. Check the bag. Go make a note to Fitz that the last comment from Beth we want taken off the record on the video because it completely dispels my theory.
No, I know.
We'll delete that part because it totally kills my theory. Makes me look like I'm not a guru. Okay?
No, it just
I'm
keeps
teasing.
proving the point. I'm just weird.
No. It's there's an important correlation behind it.
Yeah.
If you're doing it because you feel like you have to do it, there's also a probability that you're not going to get very good at it because your heart's not in it.
Yeah.
Right? So when we begin to, here's what I would suggest also. I've suggested it many times. We tend to be good at things that we enjoy doing, and we tend to enjoy doing things that we're good at. And those things that we enjoy doing and we're good at, we tend to have done a lot of times, right? We get good at things by doing them over and over, and once we do them over and over, we tend to enjoy it more and more, right? And so when we begin to increase the activity on a daily basis, the repetitions back to back to back, our ratios go up. Instead of 50 leading... So it's like... I thought that was Francis. It was just like... So, as I make 50 calls a day, these 10 contacts a day, I'm more likely to convert more of them. The more of them I convert, the more interested I am in doing this, and the better I feel when I'm actually talking to these people. So there's a direct correlation there. So in talking to Mark, he created this baseline units of activity, which is simply how many calls I make, and then I get 1 if I leave a message. I get 2 if I talk to someone, regardless of what they say, and I get 3 points if they say yes to being a guest or an appointment. What I'm trying to get is a total score, 15 plus if I'm part-time, 40 plus if I'm full-time. And what the focus is I could literally leave 15 messages in a day or 40 messages if I'm full-time in a day and reach my outcome. Now some of us, if we leave 15 messages or 40 messages and don't talk to anyone, we feel defeated. Why? Because we didn't get any results. Some of us, or let's say just the opposite, I get 2 points for talking to someone but not getting a yes. So let's say I talk to 8 people and all 8 say no. Well, I got my 15 points, but I could feel defeated because I went 0 for 8. Or as a full-timer, I could talk to 20 people, they all say no or call me back or not now, and I feel defeated because I went from 0 for 20. But the genius of this little game that Mark devised is, nope, in our system, you win. Why? Because you control the only thing you truly can control, which is the activity, and you did the activity. You've got to reward yourself for doing the work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. And by default, the more that you do the work when you're doing it with intention, because this is something I want to build, your ratios are going to get better. You're not going to go 0 for 8 or 0 for 20 day after day, week after week. It's not possible. Especially like Jim said, if you've got coaches and people that are farther that can help you, right? like Beth said, if this is something that's important to me, I really want to help people, I really want to serve, I really want to build a team, I really want to connect, I really want to grow and make a difference, your ratios are going to get better. But here's the other caveat. Here's what's unique about what we're doing. The skills aren't that hard. It's not that difficult. The degree of difficulty is really low. The guy that Jason, do you remember Dieter Heinrich?
Yes.
Dieter, bad chiclets,
Yeah, yeah.
crooked, missing a few, multiple colors, right? Bad accent. Dieter was one who I trained on the calls, who actually called Jim. Jim didn't even know what the hell he's saying, right? Right?
Actually, he was just leaving messages.
Just leaving messages, yes, because that was the skill set that I could teach him, right? Beyond that was sort of a degree, right? Too high. The skills are easy to learn here. Okay? So Mark develops this baseline. He starts doing it. He gets some of his key leaders bought in. And he goes from weak, anemic base shop recruiting numbers and really trying to do more and more sales. So all of a sudden, double-digit recruiting, 15 plus base shop recruits in this month, 20 plus base shop in his recruits, 25 plus base shop recruits this month, 19 straight months. I think he's something like 25 out of the last 26 months now. The irony of when I'm having this conversation with him, it was like December 30th or January 1st, and I was looking at the leaders book, I'm like, he didn't even know that he was on a 19-month run, and so as I'm describing it to him, I go, dude, you've got 9 base shop recruits for the month of December, because he was like gone 3 weeks here in California. He wasn't really paying attention. I go, tell me you got like one more in the hopper you need to approve. He's like, no. I'm like, you've got 19 months in a row and you're about to blow it. So January he got back on. I think he's been on ever since, like 25 out of the past 26 months. But now he's got like 3 or 4 other leaders. I think this month they have 4 leaders in the office and double-digit recruits. So I want you to think about this for a second. Was it exciting when we just had all those new people get up to go to the classes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody in here has hit double-digit recruits this month. So imagine if we've got 4 different leaders in this office hitting double-digit recruiting this next month. How many new people are going to be going to each one of the classes?
Crusade's gonna be in here.
Right?
Stay here or we'll
My
go
base will be, we're on 9 right now.
Awesome, awesome. So Francis
Well
is
done,
going to hit
Francis.
it.
One more.
One more. How many of you are licensed? How many of you would like to run more appointments and make more money? Where do the appointments come from? Recruits and referrals and
Training and
and field training, all these great opportunities. So this is the engine that drives it, right? So this baseline units of activity is what he started preaching, what he started working with, and he's got so many people bought in. So what I wanted to do for just a moment, and then I'm going to transition, is just recognize, here's what we've got right now. So I said the standard is a minimum of 15 as a part-timer. Jeanette Potley, who is teaching our orientation class, she's been at 30 plus for the past couple of weeks. Part-time, drives in after work, she works a job, puts in a full, and then drives in and then 30 plus. Michelle, what have you consistently been at the past couple of weeks?
45.
45 plus baseline units of activity, part-time. What time do you start your day job?
7:30. 7:30. Finish at 3:30.
Finish at 3:30, and then you drive from there and you get here at what time?
About 4:30. Takes me about 45
About
minutes.
4:30, and then about how long does it take you to hit your 45 unit?
No, usually no more than 90 minutes. Maybe in 2 hours if I'm talking to a lot of people.
Okay, good. When you first started doing baseline units of activity, what was your original goal? What was your original number? It wasn't 45, 10.
And Nikki laughed at me.
And Nikki laughed.
Because that's when I started, when we did the coaching. And that was
Right.
before baseline. That was straight 10 calls.
Okay, good.
And she said there's no way you're ever going to hit your goals at 10.
Okay, good. Which was good advice.
Yes.
Right? So, how long did it take you to do 10 calls then?
15, 20 minutes.
15, 20 minutes. Okay? So it was slower.
Slower.
And now you're up to 45 in about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
2 hours if you have a bunch of good
Yeah, because
conversations.
I'm making better calls. I'm probing more. So I'm not getting one no and hanging up.
Right.
So even my no's are taking a little bit longer, but my yeses are taking less time.
Excellent. And I was talking to Fiji yesterday about this, about recruiting people. I'd rather get a fast no than a slow maybe. Like if somebody's just no, they're the wrong person, I'd rather get a fast no than them keep putting me off. Like, but part of the reason they put you off and you get slow maybes is because you don't ask direct enough questions, right? So tell me about, you were sharing with me yesterday a win that you had this week on the phone.
Yeah, so I've been focused on calling licensed sales agents, and I talked to this guy. I told him about our company. He's like, "Wait, is this World Financial Group?" And I said, "Yes, it is." He's like, "Well, I'm not interested." I said, "Well, do you mind if I ask you a question? Why?" I'm like, "I would love some feedback." He's like, "Well, I thought I was getting baited and switched, and it was an office, on the west side, not Torrance." And I said, "Well, let me ask you one more question." I said, let me ask you another question. Were you impressed with the business format that we have, the products that we offer, the crusade we have for our clients?
3 good questions.
And he's
Right.
like, "Oh no, I loved all of those things." I said, "Okay." I'm like, "Well, that's really great to hear." I'm like, "So let me ask you another question." I'm like, I really apologize you had that experience with World Financial Group. I'm like, "You understand how franchises work, yes?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, that's kind of how we are. We're all independently owned and operated." I said, "I would love for you to, if you really believe in our system, for you to just come and check out our office. No pressure. You could bring your wife, come in, meet our brokers, meet our associates, get a feel for the office you potentially could be working in." He's like, "Well, let me think about it." I said, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you down as a guest on Tuesday or Wednesday night. Bring your wife." He's like, "Okay, I'll see you there."
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? Give it up for Michelle. So, how many of us have ever heard, "Oh, is this World Financial Group? I've already been to a meeting, I already know somebody, I already joined, I already tried that," right? And when somebody responds that way, how many of us, at least at one time in our careers, maybe felt a little bit defeated, like, "Oh, crud, missed that one," right?
I get excited.
She gets excited. Well, that's great. That's great. Michelle, all Michelle did was ask questions, rather than just sort of throwing in the towel and quitting on that one. She just asked some probing questions. She asked some good questions. And when she got him to focus on was not the negatives of the experience, but were there some positives? And in this case, there were. But she was determined to ask questions to find positives, to rebuild the relationship and to ask again, to rebuild the conversation and ask again. We talked about this Wednesday night. The overwhelming majority of sales are made after the 5th no. If the first no is, "Oh, I already know what that is. Oh, I already know somebody. Oh, I've already been to it. If that's the first no, then you go, "Okay, thanks." They may be one of the, remember how we talked about 20% are no way, 20% are pretty easy to close. The gold is in the 60% that would have some level of interest or openness, but we've got to cultivate them. We've got to ask enough questions. So Michelle asked enough questions to get, you want me to tell you what my hallucination is? How many times do you think that guy's been prospected since he went to that meeting and has told people, "Oh, I already went to a meeting, I felt like I was baited and switched"? How many times do you think, I bet it's happened more than once. How many do you think so?
Yeah.
Right? And probably a bunch of people are like, oh. Not Michelle. Michelle asked a couple of more questions, led to a yes. Great job, Michelle. Mo, what have you been running baseline units of activity?
50 plus.
50 plus. 50 plus. Good job. Any wins recently?
Yes. A lot of good wins. I've had 2 individuals, one was an appointment probably 8 months ago, and he couldn't get back a hold of his wife to be able to sit back down. I just sat down with him yesterday. Another one was my best friend. He was my second appointment, my second trained appointment in business.
Right.
We finally just sat back down with him and his wife and put the plan together.
Good, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good job. Beth, what have you been running?
I'm running, my baseline's at 15, and this week's not been a good week for personal reasons, but I've been running 18 to 20.
Good.
I had a couple of days where I had one day where I was 32.
Good.
Which was incredible, and a couple other days in the mid to upper 20s, so
Here's
time to bump it to 20 because I've got the consistency.
Yes, here's the most important thing. If your baseline is 15, is it great to have a 20 or a 25 or a 30 mixed in there, yes or no?
Yes.
But the key is, you gotta hit this every day.
Right.
The key is in the consistency and building the habit. When we're talking about building a big base shop and building a big company, here's the first thing that you've got to be able to lead you first. You've got to be able to control yourself first. And great successes, and whether it's in the ministry, whether it's in athletics, whether it's in business, whether it's in the Girl Scouts, come from great daily choices. How many of us have raised children before and talked about making good choices? How many of us know that good choices aren't always easy choices, right? No. When we make good choices often enough, they become habits. Habits are no longer choices. Habits are run by the crocodile part of our brain that's only about this big, right back here. They're automatic, reflexive, we don't even think about it. The other day I left here in a hurry, I was running late, and I drove straight to my old house that I no longer live in. Honest to goodness. Like, I was literally, like, getting off the freeway, and I'm like, where the hell am I going? Like, before I even realized. I'm not an idiot. Well, that's debatable. But like, it's just like stress, crocodile brain, reaction, habit. Go, 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 go. I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to waste.
It wasn't you, the car knew its way home.
Yeah. I'm not going to say what I'm thinking, but anyway. We've got to make good choices day after day after day after day after day until it just becomes habit. So you choosing a number and sticking to it. The first thing, if I'm going to help you to build something big here, the first thing I've got to get you to do, and I can't do it for you, is to make the daily choice of making the calls. You're never, ever, you're not going to be good enough at sales. Your presentations, your closing isn't going to be good enough. Our products aren't going to be good enough for you to build something big here or make a bunch of money if you don't make the daily calls. But by the way, you can make a lot of money here and you can be good enough at the sales to make a lot of money without building a big base shop, but you still got to make a bunch of calls to still set up the appointments to be good enough at the sales.
Right.
So you've got to build the daily discipline, and the sooner it can go from I have to do this, like Beth was talking about earlier, to I'm choosing to do this, to now it's just like whether Mo has a good day or a bad day, whether Michelle is totally overwhelmed, distracted, or not feeling well. It's it's just like brushing their teeth. It's gonna happen regardless, because now it's not only a habit, but it becomes a part of our identity. And the strongest force in the human spirit is to remain consistent with our identity. If this is who I am, like I'm building a big business here. Part of building a big business is making these daily calls, and I've done it so many weeks in a row, like it feels so incongruent. I feel like something is missing in my life if I don't do it. Which is different than beating ourselves up because we don't make a good choice that we know we should have. Like sometimes we eat a bad meal and afterwards we go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's not like you being inconsistent with your identity. That's like you just guilting and shaming yourself after the fact, okay? When it's a part of your identity, it's like literally something is like, I have to. Does that make sense? Yes. So the first step, and I can't get past this step with you until you make the daily choice over and over, whether it was 10 for Michelle, it's 15 for Beth, right? To make that enough times to where it's just a freaking habit. Once it's a habit, now I can start working with you on the skills, on improving the ratios, on maybe getting better names and numbers in here to make the calls with, and maybe improving what we're doing with the results down here. We can start all these other things. And a lot of us leaders love to train on these other things, and they're fun to train on, and for goodness sakes, people love to learn about these other things. But it's almost foolish to be learning about these other things before we really develop this discipline. Because you can learn about all the other things till you're blue in the face. If you don't establish this, all the other things are never going to come to fruition. You're never going to be able to play with them at a large enough level. Your team's not going to recruit enough people for you. The contest isn't going to do it for you. Elite Circle's not going to do it for you. The office isn't going to do it for you. Like, you have to make a decision. I'm going to make this a daily part of my life. Okay. Cynthia Freeman, who was one of Tony Robbins' top trainers for years and years and years, and she was like my first personal coach. You remember Cynthia? Were you around then? Yeah. Some of you guys do. So she, like, as a realtor, she was the #1 realtor in like 10 cities in North Orange County for like a decade. 10 North Orange, right? She didn't run appointments in the evenings, didn't run on weekends. And she's the top realtor in 10 cities for a decade. That's unheard of. If you're going to make money in real estate, you've got to be doing open houses and showings on weekends and driving people around in the backseat of your car and evenings. She didn't do it. She had young kids that she was raising. She was a single mom. She was 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and that was it. How did she do it? Every morning she knocked doors in residential communities and canvassed for 3 hours religiously. And she created so much activity that she was able to pick and choose not only who she's working with, but when she was working with them. And she created such a high identity and such a high skill set, such a high demand for herself, that people were willing to take time off of their work to meet with her and to fit into her schedule. Right? That's why she did it. But how did she do it? The activity. See, she controlled the activity, and she got so much activity that she was able to pick and choose and filter through her results to get the results that she wanted to work with. Most realtors don't do enough activity, enough prospecting, so they're forced to sort of be at the ebb and flow and the whim of anybody who says, maybe I'm interested. Not her, okay? So you've got to control this first. So Ricky texted me this morning. He's like, when you were at our level, when your team was this small and your cash flow and things were unstable, for me, we're texting back and forth. I got up at 5 this morning. We're texting back and forth on ideas and stuff like that. I said it's easy for me to remember. And the big shift came for me really when I made a couple of investments. And one was a decision. My let would yell at me, you got to make 100 calls a day. I'm like, I don't know 100 people to call. It's like, call somebody, but you got to make 100 calls a day. When I started making 100 calls a day, that was different than baseline, right? But same idea. I made a decision to making 100 phone calls a day. And when I started making 100 phone calls a day, that activity level started to make my skills on the phone better. That activity level started to build my confidence. Because I started to feel like I'm outworking people, I deserve it more. Like I just felt good about my days because I was doing real work. The more that you do real work, the better you feel about yourself and the better you feel about your odds. You know when you're doing pansy work, when you're organizing your desk and doing when you're doing pansy work, you know it. And you don't feel that great about it. You just feel like, okay, check the box. When you're doing heavy lifting, you know it. Like I felt great at the end of each day, even when I wasn't making progress. I just felt good, like I know I'm doing the stuff that matters. So my confidence went up, my skills on the phone went up, and here's what happened. I started setting a bunch of one-on-ones, and I started getting a bunch of KTPs from it. And I messed up a bunch of these, and I messed up a bunch of these, but I kept making so many calls that even after I'd messed them up, I'd have more to work with and more to work with. And I'd go to Jason, or I'd go to Ed, or I'd go to Chris Kramer, or I'd go to Dan, and I just tried to learn from my mistakes. I'd try to have them run one and learn from them, but I was able to run enough of these back to back, week after week, day after day, to learn the difference. What's the difference between an engineer who's a no way, he's not going to buy from you, from one who's just very, very analytical and you got to get into the weeds and then get them out of the weeds? Well, the only way you're going to know that is if you see 2 engineers in a week, not 2 in 3 months. You got to see them side by side and go, oh, got it. Right? You learn you learn to be able to discern between somebody who's a no way versus somebody that you just got to ask more questions and lead to a yes. But I would have never gotten great at recruiting in one-on-ones and never got great at the KTPs if I didn't control this first. You can't get great at KTPs running 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 a week. Like 5 KTPs a week, you'll never get great. Promise. You'll be good, you'll be decent. But you didn't come here to be decent. You'll never be great, right? So when I made that decision, And I started making the calls, and it was hard. It's sort of like, how many of you have ever gone on a diet before and started an exercise program, and 3 weeks later, like, the scales moved a little bit, and your clothes pretty much fit the same. You try and like convince yourself that they're feeling a little bit looser, right? And like you're just starting to catch your breath when you're doing cardio. Like 3 weeks, you really haven't moved the needle, right? And it's been like a huge investment of like your emotional will, energy and will, and but when you keep making it like 3 months, like you can move the needle a freaking lot. A lot if you really work out hard and control your diet. You can move the needle a lot in 3 months. Anybody can. And after 3 months, a lot of people become addicted to the way they feel. It's no longer a choice they have to make. It's like a habit. For a lot of people, it becomes a part of their identity. And also, like 3 years later, you can be in ridiculous shape. It's the same way building a business. Like 3 weeks of this, you're not going to be rich. Your cash flow and your team size might not even shift, but I need you to be doing 3 or 4 weeks of it just to build the habit. Once you have the habit, then I can start really working with you. But if you don't have the habit every day, there's limits as to what I can do because there's just not enough activity to work with. Okay? So, for me, that's what shifted. I'll tell you the other thing that I did early on in my career was I invested. Who's the best investor of all time? No question, right? We all answer the same thing. No question, right? So Warren Buffett famously said, the best investment that you'll ever make is yourself. Huh. So if he's the best investor ever, and he said the best investment you could ever make is in yourself, I wonder if there's any wisdom behind that. I wonder. Because selfishly, he should say the best investment you could ever make is into one of his companies. Isn't that what he should say selfishly? But he didn't say that. He said it's in yourself, right? So, I made like more poor choices as a young man in my 20s than most of you could imagine. Than most of you would like to imagine about me. There's a good chance that all of you combined together made on your own, right? I made a lot of poor choices when I was young. I'm not proud of it. I'm grateful I survived without any like felonies on my record, right, or anything like that, right? Grateful. Made 2 good choices, and they were both related to investing heavily in myself. 26 years old, I went to my first Anthony Robbins seminar. Prior to that, I began to make a tremendous investment into books, into tapes, into every seminar I could go to. I belonged to, way before, like this is before MP3, this is before CDs, I belonged to a club located in the valley that was like called the Audio Book Club or something like that. And I paid like a huge monthly fee to be able to rent like tapes, videotapes and cassette tapes as fast as I could listen to them and return them, right? And the guy had a big collection of them. I did that for years and was a voracious reader. Went to every seminar I could go to. And here's what I want you to understand. I didn't have the money to. I was broke. I was making like in the 20,000s, right, when I started doing this. But I would literally, my credit cards didn't go to a whole bunch of stupid stuff. Here's where I ran up a bunch of debt on my credit cards. Investing in things that would make me stronger. And I invested a lot of money in like really nice suits and shirts and belts and shoes and ties. My car was like a joke. I had a hoopty, right? Where I was living was a joke. All of my furniture was used. My mattress was used, right? Who buys used mattresses? I did, right? Like all of it, like my stuff was a joke. But I always tried to dress very expensively, right? And I invested a lot in me. And then the third investment I made in me was I did the work. And so I just want to encourage you because there's a lot to be said for this. When Ricky said, hey, how did you make that transition? Those were 3 big keys to the transition. I was working on me. I had nice clothes that I couldn't afford, but it made me feel great about me, right? Made me feel good. People who feel good tend to do good. I'm working on me, I'm working on ideas, I'm working on language, I'm working on the words to say, and I'm working hard at doing the things that I needed to do. And those things combined, the self-improvement, the wardrobe, and the hard work, really built my confidence a ton. And as my confidence grew, my skills grew, and my results started to grow, and it became like this perpetual cycle, okay? So, Michelle's been killing it, Mo's been killing it, Ricky's been killing it, Jeanette's been killing it, Hope has been doing a good job, Steve has been doing a great job, Beth's been doing a decent job. I'm starting to see, like, Peter's done a good job on and off. He had to take a break to work on his Series 65. I'm starting to see some traction from some guys. And what I said 3 or 4 weeks ago is we need 4 or 5 full-timers that are really committed to running the play. And I need about 4 or 5 part-timers that are, I don't need everybody. I'm not trying to convince everybody. But 4 or 5 full-timers, 4 or 5 part-timers who are really committed to making the calls, doing the work. And we'll change the whole office environment, we'll change the culture, but more importantly, like, for those people, we'll change their lives forever. Because you build a great business, and it's a monkey see, monkey do. It's a world of duplication. People that are going to come into your business and experience your business through that, they're only going to know one way to do things. Oh yeah, well as you're teaching them, like, how you're making phone calls and baseline and what you're saying, they're going to be like, yeah, that sounds almost exactly like the phone call that you made to me. That sounds like the questions that I had. That sounds like what you said to me. Oh yeah, they're just going to walk through this system and go, that's exactly what I experienced. It's going to be easy for them to replicate. Now I want to share a little bit with you, if I can, about making calls and talking to people and influencing people. Can I get a little bit colorful for a moment?
Yes.
Just a little bit?
Yes.
Not as colorful as I oftentimes do, but a little bit. Here's what I want to talk about. Guys that can't pick up girls. How many of you ladies have ever met a guy like this? Been stalked by a guy like this? A guy like this wanted to dance with you, buy you a drink, get your phone number, right? How many of you guys have ever felt like this? You don't have to raise your hands. No.
It was you.
No, I don't believe it. So, there's a buddy of mine, and he's been working with a guy, and literally this guy teaches seminars to guys as to how to pick up girls. And the guy's making like 50, 60 grand a month. His seminars are booked every single week. Like, he doesn't even run the seminars. He's got guys that go out and run the seminars for him because they're just packed. They're just packed everywhere in the country, right? Which I don't know what that is a testament to. I think there's a lot of narratives that you can put behind that, right? But I was having a conversation with him about this guy's business model, which was fascinating, right? But what was more fascinating to me is that people are people, and human behavior is human behavior. And as I'm talking to him about what this guy teaches and why it works, I go, that's so true of what we're doing when we're talking to people. Whether I'm meeting somebody in a Starbucks for the first time, I'm calling somebody on the phone for the first time, it's the same thing. So he just presents it this way because he probably makes a lot more money doing it this way. I choose to stay in this arena. Okay, so he talks about guys that struggle in this area. By the way, how many of you have ever known a pretty good-looking guy that had his act together, had a good career, was a super nice guy that struggled in this area? Right? So it's not like, oh, well, they're not good-looking. How many of you ever knew like a guy that was average-looking to below average-looking that didn't struggle at all in this area?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you guys looking at me? Right? I don't get the joke. I guess. Okay. So he says the guy's whole theory is there's 3 parasites that these guys have. Okay? Parasite number 1, and I just think this so relates to what we do. And I just want you to consider it. Parasite number 1 is what he calls persona fatigue. What's persona fatigue? Any guesses? Hope.
2 guesses. One, when the guy walks up, you're like, oh shit, I know this guy. I've seen him. Whatever.
Guess?
And then the other one is from the person's perspective is they're so busy trying to keep up this mask of who they are that it just gets wearing. Like you just can't keep it up very much longer.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
We're both
The second one. Yeah, I was sharing with 2 or 3 people this week. I said, you know, there's some people in the office that have just really grown a tremendous amount over the past 6 months, and in hopes for those people, I think she's just grown so, like it's just obvious.
Did you just call me fat?
Not that you know. Yeah.
He's right.
That reminds me of a really funny joke, but persona fatigue, it's people trying to be somebody that they're not. And for some reason, sometimes really good people that are just good to the core, they come into our business and they think they have to act richer than they are, act more successful than they are, act like somebody that they're not in order for the business to be successful. And you don't have to be at all. Matter of fact, one of the best ways, like even for somebody who's very successful, one of the best ways for them to connect with people is for their stories or their testimony to start out at a place that their audience can completely relate to, because that's where their audience is at. Some speakers are always at a superior level, like look at me and here's what I've achieved and here's what I am and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, people may want that, but it's hard for them to connect or relate to. The most effective speakers start out at an inferior or neutral level where their story is a real story, but it connects with where the audience currently is. And then from there you can move them, right? But it's persona fatigue. It's trying to act like somebody you're not. The first thing I always pay attention to when somebody walks into my office, I was sharing John with my wife this morning, like meeting Scott and Rick yesterday. And I was comparing meeting Scott yesterday to meeting that Ledecky guy, or whatever his name is. Horadicate, yeah. I'll never get his name right, but I got Scott's name right?
Please don't, it's not worth it.
What?
I said, please don't, it's
Yeah,
not worth it.
but, well, and I share with my wife, like, this other guy wanted to seem like a big shot, he's got all this money, he's got his house paid off, and he's got no debts and all that sort of stuff, right? And to the point where he wants people to know this about this, and you just get this energy about him, like he's trying to be somebody, and then we find out after the fact, well, maybe the house is paid off, but maybe it's not his house, maybe he's just living there, and so he's trying to be somebody that he's not, right? And I didn't know what it was, there was just something about his energy that, and I always pay attention to people's energy, right? Like, when somebody's in my office, I could give a rip how successful they are academically, financially, I'm always just paying attention to their energy. Is this who they really are, or is there some sort of persona they're trying to create? Because my feeling like is, if they're sitting down with me as a client, me and my wife, do I feel like I'm dealing with a persona, or do I feel like I'm just, here's who the person is? And I think the more authentic that we are, the more relatable that we are. So guys struggle picking up girls when they try and put on a persona. I think we struggle on the phones or one-on-one with people with KTP, one-on-one, or just meet somebody at Starbucks, when we're trying to put on a persona. How many of you can relate? Not you, but somebody else that you know I'm here in the office does that too much. Okay, good. Okay. Number 2. Number 2 is one of my favorite on the planet. And I think this occurs for more people than oftentimes we're aware of or we fully acknowledge. Self-judgment fatigue. Self-judgment fatigue. One of my favorite quotes by Wayne Dyer is, when you judge someone, judge someone, how does it go? Lost my words. I've seen you.
You acknowledge yourself as someone that needs to judge.
Yeah, but there's another
No, you
component.
take away their opportunity to change. Or to surprise you.
That's the one I remember.
Yeah, but there's a middle part to it. You've got the front and the end. When you don't,
Allow them to.
you judge somebody, you don't blank them. You blank yourself as someone who needs to judge. Oh, when you judge someone, you don't define them. No, it's not define. All right, let me skip that. I'll think about it. I'll get to number 3 and I'll come back to that. Okay. Let me give you the second part about judgment, self-judgment fatigue. It's impossible for you to influence someone when you're judging them. It's impossible for you to influence someone else when you're judging them. Let me say this a different way. It's impossible for you to influence anyone when you're in judgment of them, including yourself. Including yourself. It's hard for you to have a positive influence on you when you're judging yourself. And we oftentimes judge ourselves, shame ourselves, guilt ourselves, right? And so you've got to work on your own self-acceptance. Not that you're perfect, we'll never be perfect. Not that we're blameless, not that we'll ever be blameless. But you have to work on forgiving yourself, accepting yourself for previous faults, even current faults, and doing the best with what you've got. When we hold ourselves in judgment, it's really difficult for us to influence ourselves for positive, to grow ourselves. And when we judge others, it's impossible to influence them. So how do I restrict from judging others? I know none of you do this, right? I'm the only one here who judges people, right? How do we do this? Let me give you a couple of questions. That person that you find yourself wanting to judge or starting to judge or whatever the case might be, what do I like about him or her? Or sometimes that's too difficult of a question because we're too deep in judgment. What could I like about them? It's a really powerful question to ask yourself. What could I like about them? What do I like about them? Yes?
Or switching the question around, if you're passing a judgment on somebody, recognize that you're judging yourself. There's something that you're going, that is you in the mirror.
One out, 3 back at you.
One out, yes. When you're pointing at them, it's one at them, 3 back at you.
I have a quote if you want it.
Yes, thank you, Jim.
That's what I was
Is it define? Is that the word I'm looking for?
When you judge another, you do not define them.
It is
You define yourself as someone
who needs to judge. So when you judge someone, you don't define them. Because isn't that what we're trying to do when we're judging someone? He's a this, she's a that. When you judge someone, you don't define them. You define yourself as someone who needs to judge. Why do we need to judge? Because it's our own way of building up our ego by pushing someone else down. That's why we need to judge. It's an ego. It's a need of the ego, right? Is to judge. So how do we combat that? Well, one, an understanding of what it's really doing, right? It's really defining us as someone who's judgmental. It's not really defining them. People judge me all the time. Okay. I don't, it is what it is. What do I like about them, or what could I like about them? An even more powerful step as you mature. What do I love about them, or what could I love about them? Now, are some people more difficult to love than others?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. But as we mature, our ability to genuinely go from what could I like about this person to what do I absolutely love about them, you grow immensely when you're able to change that perception within you. Does it mean that they change and get perfect and stop annoying you and pushing your buttons? No! But I'll tell you what, it makes it harder and harder for them to push your buttons when you're coming from that space. Because it just doesn't get under your skin the way it does. Jim?
Yeah, you you find what you're looking for.
Yes, you find what you're, yes.
If you're looking for something that's gonna be, where you think is gonna cause you to feel a certain way, you're gonna find that. But if you're looking for something that you're gonna like about them, you're gonna find that too.
Yes. Yes. There's a whole nother strategy related to that, but that's exactly true. You're gonna find what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something to like about them or looking for something to love about them, and you can do it like, usually in every office this size, there's someone that gets on your nerves. For whatever reason, right? John, you're volunteering to be that person. No.
There's a really good way of deciding whether or not whether you're judging somebody or not, but the first thing is, have you ever been judged yourself? Basically, you've been written off. Somebody decided this is who you are. You made a mistake. You will never be
Yes.
more than a mistake. They took you, they put you in the box, they left you there, and how did that feel?
Yes.
And think about it. Think about that. How did that feel when somebody did it to you? Are you, at any particular point, ever supposed to do that to somebody else?
No. But what we're supposed to do, what we do, are two radically different things.
Especially yourself.
Yes, and especially, this is the biggest part of it. If you're stuck here, it's really easy for you to judge others. The more that we judge ourselves, the easier it is to judge others. The more that we are forgiving and accepting of ourselves. Not like free pass, I can do anything, I can do no wrong. But accepting, forgiving, and I'm going to work it out. The more that we realize that, like, 99% of the conflict that I'm aware of in like my community, where I see things go down between people, I see disappointment, frustration, anxiety, anger, and like all that sort of stuff going down, it's two really good people that both have the best of intentions, and they're just misinterpreting what the other is doing or the way that they're doing it. It's almost never somebody with bad intentions directly trying to get somebody. Now, Jason's world, that's different. It's probably 99% bad intentions. Jason deals with a lot of bad people, right? Professionally, outside of his home, right? Yeah. Professionally. Jason's out there trying to clear the air of the bad guys for us, right? But like in my community, it's good people with good intentions that oftentimes are the source of frustration and anger and angst and disappointment and upset and all of this sort of stuff. They're not bad people, they don't have bad intentions. Now sometimes after this misinterpretation we react in a negative way, but that's not where we're starting from. It's a reaction, and it's usually a self-defense. I'm wounded, so I'm going to wound back. That's usually what it is. Somebody had something to add?
I just wanted to say that my experience is that judgment comes from projection. I'm projecting onto that person my own judgments of myself, and therefore, and then the energy gets all screwed up totally.
How many of you follow what she's saying?
Yes.
So you can sort of see how these two could sort of be linked together.
Yes.
This persona of me, right? So what's number 3? Number 3 is interesting when it comes, it's called indecision fatigue. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, when you were younger and you were in the club scene, right? Indecision fatigue. We make eye contact, it's like, oh crap, she's cute, she looked at me, what should I say something, what should I say? Okay, indecision fatigue. No, I just completely blew it, now she thinks I'm a complete moron. Right? You got 3 seconds. Eye contact is made, you got 3 seconds. Hi. Hey, how are you doing? You look great. Anything, right? But just like indecision, you get in your head. You look like a dork. You start projecting dork energy. Nobody wants to be around you. I mean, you just do, right? So it's like, you got to be decisive. You got to be decisive. You make contact with somebody. Hi, hello, how are you? Good morning. I walked in this morning, right? Jessica opens the door for me and go, wow, your hair looks great. I was very decisive. I thought her hair looked terrific. I let her know. Boom. It was less than 3 seconds. True or not true? It was like a half a second. It almost caught her off guard.
Shocking.
Yes. But that would have been way better than her opening the door and me just going. Your hair looks awesome. Dude, that thing is weird, right? indecision fatigue. Okay? Part of what helps us to be decisive is when we're confident. We have self-confidence. Part of what gives us self-confidence is not being in judgment of ourselves, being comfortable with who we are, not trying to be somebody that we're not. The good, the bad, and the ugly, our flaws and our successes. Some of us focus, like Jim said, you get whatever you focus on. Some of us focus so much on our shortcomings and our gifts we minimize. It's not a big deal. We just almost are embarrassed by our strengths, right? Decisiveness comes from confidence. Confidence comes from not being in judgment and accepting who you are. Your gifts, your strengths, your weaknesses, all that together, right? And not trying to be somebody you're not, right? And then we sort of roll it back from a business perspective. You control the things that you can control. You make the calls. You talk to the people. The more that you do this, the more that you're going to build your confidence inside of the business. And what you're going to find by doing this is you don't have to be me. You don't have to be Jim. You don't have to be Dan. You don't have to be Ed. You don't have to be Nikki. You don't have to be Francis. You don't have to be somebody you're not. Right? You remember when Steve Haig was a baby in the business, right? And he was good. He was successful, especially for a really young guy. Persona. What was his persona?
He was a mess.
But who was he trying to be every time he was?
He was trying to be Ed.
Yeah, look, they both said it at the same time. He was trying so hard to be Ed. But he was young, he was impressionable. It's you got to model success, and so that was the model. It was just obvious. And Ed does Ed great. Steve didn't do Ed very great. Right? Now Steve's matured, and Steve does Steve incredible. Steve's great at doing Steve, but he stopped trying to do Ed. Right? So there's things that we model in others. That's part of the recipe that Jim was talking about having a mentor and a coach. But you want to be who you are. I want Errol just to be Errol, right? I want John just to be John, right? Kritzia, okay? Be yourself. Control the thing that you control. Make the decision. Hey, I'm not here for the trainings. I'm not here for the meetings. I'm not here to clap for others. I'm not here just to learn stuff. I'm not here just to have a bunch of friends twice a week. And all that stuff is awesome. I'm here because I want to win. And winning here is building a team. Winning here is having confidence in my skills. Winning here is being good at something and enjoying doing it. Winning here can start. Some of you have roles here. And it's great to gravitate to a role where you're naturally good at, where you can contribute as part of the community. Right? But then some of us cling to our roles, right? I'm the blankety blank guy, or I'm the blankety blank gal, and that we get so attached to that role that role becomes our identity inside of WFG. And when you went through the BPM, we didn't go, hey, we need a guy to do sign-in. Here's what the comp is for the sign-in. Here's what the legacy is for sign-in. You're that's me! Woo! Right? What do I gotta do? Right? That's not what you saw in the BPM, right? Okay, here's the roles. Okay, we have sign-in, here's the comp. We've got the chair guy, here's the comp. We've got the AV guy, here's the comp. No! It was associate and SMD and this number of transactions and this income and all the goodies and the trips, right? The role is you want to have a role because you want to contribute to the community and you want to feel like you're a part of the community, right? Mm-hmm. But don't let the role, you get so much confidence and identity in the role that it distracts you from doing the hard work, that it keeps you from growing in the areas that you need to grow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because I appreciate some of you. I appreciate the role. I appreciate you and the roles that you have here more than you know. Matter of fact, I don't know of any other hierarchy that does this, but we started doing this years ago at our Wealth Bowl. Is we have the Unsung Hero Award that we make a big deal out of every year at the Wealth Bowl. A big deal because the unsung heroes of the office are the guys and the gals that play those roles for us, and they're important roles to the success of the office. But I don't want you here for a trophy that says unsung hero. I want you all to compete for that, but I don't want that trophy to be your identity. I want it to be one of your stepping stones to building a great business here, and to making money and building a great team here, and that you can do here, okay? It's always most difficult to start the diet, to start the exercise plan, to start the daily discipline. It's really hard. Actually, the starting of it, the first day isn't always the hardest. And sometimes the second day isn't, and sometimes the third day isn't, but I think the fourth day or the fifth day, something's going to challenge us. On the 8th day and the 14th day, and there's going to be challenges like you've got to force yourself to do it. Okay? And the two things that help you to sort of do that is having some sort of accountability program where you're texting a mentor, just letting them know daily on accountability, because it's great when you do a good job and you get a pat on the back, but the days that you don't feel like doing the work, it'll eat you up inside to either text a negative text that I didn't do it, or to not text and to sort of hope that you don't get called out, hope that they go, hey, where's your text today, how'd you do? Like, your fear of that oftentimes will drive you through those days where you just don't feel like doing it. And so that accountability helps us get through those first few weeks until it's really, really a strong habit. So I want to challenge you and encourage you to make that decision. Do like Warren Buffett says, invest in yourself heavily. I'm a big believer of listening to things because I think most of us aren't very good readers, don't have enough time to read, can't read fast enough, but all of us spend a lot of time in our cars in California. You can pour a ton of great stuff into your head through the car, Fiji.
I just want to make one point to everybody in here. What recruited me basically is the ozone that you guys have. Because you guys have a very good system. When I look at this office, I look at this office as a first-class office anywhere in the world, right? And when you invite people to this place, you're inviting them to the world-class seminar. And if you bring somebody in here, everybody here works together. That's what I see and I felt. And everybody will help you recruit that person for you. All you have to do is just bring them over here. And I want to thank all of you. And that's the reason why I was able to get 2% recruited.
This first
I
week.
want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Invest in yourself here, get yourself some nice stuff here, and then invest in doing the work and have somebody that you're offering accountability to, not somebody that's chasing you down. And I promise you, I would like literally sit down and tell you this isn't a great fit for you if I didn't believe that you could win here.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
There's steps that you can do to get you winning here in a fairly short period of time. This isn't a long sales cycle, it doesn't take a long time. If you start out with this step and you run this step for the next 3 or 4 weeks and somewhere along the way, let me know you're doing this step. And I'll encourage you, I'll challenge you, I'll go along on the journey with you. Michelle will tell you that, Mo will tell you that, Ricky will tell you that, Jeanette will tell you that, Fritzy will tell you that, Hope will tell you that. I'll go on the journey with you. Let me know that you're on the journey. Let's just start it day after day after day, and let's start something special here, okay? And you can be one of the people that are sort of at the forefront of that. So I'll be off next week. Family's going to Pismo Beach for a family vacation, last one to sort of end the summer before the kids go back to school. So I'll be back next Saturday morning for the meeting. Have a great week without you guys and play big and get started today, okay?